Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the TelcoBridges Podcast. I'm joined once again by our VP of Client Technical Services, Luc Morissette. Luc, thanks for joining me. In today's episode, we explore connecting Microsoft Teams to the PSTN. What are some of the challenges in doing so? What are some of the opportunities in doing so? And what do businesses and service providers have to think about? Hey, Luc, so we were just talking offline about how what the world was like before these video conferencing tools, back when Skype was the main Microsoft kind of communication platform, right?
Well, Skype was not Microsoft, right? It was another platform which was bought Microsoft because they saw the value of having video calls. Before, it was only personal users calling each other and having video calls. On businesses' side, was very few video calls. There was some platforms doing video conferences, but it was not used so much. Most of the people did not have cameras, but it's still, we still started to use these tools as we moved along.
Yeah, that's true. Skype was mostly a consumer thing.
Yep.
I remember using Skype as a consumer, and I would call other Skype users. But then it wasn't really a thing for business. Was the technology not there?
Well, you had Skype for business. Before that, you had Link. So Microsoft was trying to get into this PBX market with different products, and they finally went with Skype because they had a good voice solution, which based on good transcoding, good vocoders, and then also video calls, right?
Right. In parallel to all of this, there was the transition towards hosted PBXs too, right? Like the world, businesses had PBXs on-prem, and then that got replaced slowly with cloud-hosted PBXs.
Yeah, so traditionally, equipment installed at the businesses' premises, and then each had their own phones connected to their desk. These devices, got a bit old, and then you say, well, do I replace with another system? And then there's, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I go with a hosted PBX outside in the cloud, or something else, right? You could have a full cloud architecture right to your desk, right?
Got it. And then, in recent memory for all of us, and it's still probably pretty scarring, was the pandemic, of course, which changed everything. And all of a sudden, video became super important for just about everybody in, the business community. And that became the primary mode of communication.
Yeah, for sure. So communication is one thing that's very, very important. Then you have video calls inside your company. So employee to employee. But then you also have customers that you can't go see anymore. You still need to talk with them. You can call them without video, but if you have video, it's better. But reaching them is important. So communication is what we're trying to keep up if everybody needs to stay home, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. The technology obviously existed because we were all able to convert over to using it, fairly quickly. It's that the stay-at-home mandates precipitated the adoption.
Yep, absolutely.
You probably would have gotten to the steady state of voice communication anyways. It just would have taken much longer, and this kind of forced everybody to use it and be like, oh wow, this is actually pretty good.
Because this thing of conferencing like this, as video conferencing, has been there for 40 years probably, but the adoption never came, and slowly the technology evolved, and suddenly it became everybody has to do it. Do we have something? And then we have some solution. We talked about Teams and Skype, but there's also Zoom and WebEx, right? Which are other platforms that have been popularized more with the pandemic.
Yeah, Zoom is an interesting example. Became popular basically overnight as a result of the pandemic. Clearly they were there and they had good technology, but all of a sudden everybody needed what they had. So it's a really really good story. And then all of these companies like Microsoft with Teams, Zoom, and WebEx, now they became super popular in video, and then now they all have a voice product, right?
Correct. Yep. So the voice product, then it's fine. You can use that to talk with people, but you need to also reach everybody else with your voice platform, right? If you want to use this as your main voice interface, then you need to be able to reach everybody else.
Yeah. So hence the question, how do you connect Microsoft Teams to the PSTN, to the public switch network, to kind of the phone number network that we've talked about many times on this podcast?
Yeah, exactly. So interoperability, right? So being able to connect to the Teams and to the rest. So that means Teams has a special interface where you can configure voice calls to go there. It's using SIP, right? SIP with special some special technical requirements, but still it's basic SIP. And then with this, you can connect to the traditional network. You can connect to other PBXs. You can connect to other businesses, carriers, international carriers, and so that's interoperability with the rest of the world.
Yeah, because all of a sudden you have to turn your Teams screen into an endpoint, right? I mean, I guess it's similar to what hosted PBXs had to figure out before Teams. And that's, effectively what Teams is like a simple, straightforward kind of hosted PBX setup.
Yep, correct. So hosted PBX is either you have still a desk phone, which is an IP phone in that case, and you can pick it up and make calls. But there's been some integrations which are interesting because then you can use your computer. And today you can't do anything without your computer. So you have your computer, you have your soft phone, which is there, and you can use it to call hosted PBX, just like what you do for Teams, right? So similar type of calling functions.
Got it. And so then the crux of it is, getting Teams to the phone number network effectively. Yep. So the PSTN. Why is interoperability so important?
Because you have all kinds of different SIP interfaces. So some have some adaptations, some has security built in, like encryption. There's all types of vocoders, different types of vocoders in the networks. You need to adapt those vocoders. So some have specific fields they put in SIP messages for specific types of calls. So really interoperability is not as easy as you would hope for.
And just maybe to specify for some of our listeners who may not be as familiar, like, you send a voice call over the internet. So you're sending packets, to an IP address. Mm-hmm. But if any one of these things does not match between the sender and the receiver, the call just won't work. Is that the right way to think about it?
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the initial call works and then it drops. So there's all kinds of things that can happen. But if the main thing is to get access to your network, right? So one of the things is to have redundant routes. Right, so one carrier could be down or you can't access, so you need to have another way to reach your destination, right? So failover routes, allow to route calls as you decide. It could be cost also. Some carriers charge more depending on the time of day, so it could be cost of the routes as well.
So interoperability, you mentioned kind of security and encryption. I really like the redundancy kind of survivability point about like route redundancy in case something goes down. Those are some pretty meaty challenges for kind of voice network infrastructure. So what's been like, how did Microsoft Teams solve that effectively? Like, how do they make all that work with the PSTN network?
Well, they don't themselves. They need to work with other vendors to do that interconnection to the public networks, right? So you need to have an SBC or something that is SIP based, SIP, maybe a SIP proxy, but of course an SBC has more security and is more advanced. But you need to have that to interconnect to the Teams. And there's some, Teams uses encrypted packets, so you almost always need to decrypt them to go to other networks.
Right. So again, enter like session border controllers here to kind of like make sense of the collection of those challenges kind of on both sides, on the team side and on the kind of caller receive other side, basically, of any call. And their direct routing program, they basically have a program of standards for effectively SIP trunk standards is the right way to think about it, right?
Yep. They just did their own specification to make sure all types of call would work. And it's a series of things you need to support. Some are very technical, like you need to have for each session that you have with the endpoint, you have your stream of media that is passing through the system, and you have analytics data on that RTP stream, that media stream, and this RTCP information is mixed inside that RTP stream, which is not the case for regular SIP trunks. It's just separated. Is it a big deal? No, but still you have to support that if you want to interconnect with Teams direct routing.
Yeah. So there's a number of standards that are really important. And hey, just before we go any further, I do want to pause for a second and again clarify something for our listeners who may not be aware. The way Microsoft, the terminology they use is there's Teams Phone and then Teams Phone plus PSTN. Can you just clarify exactly what the difference is between those two things, just to make sure everyone's on the same page? No.
I'm not sure what the...
Basically, Teams Phone is their ability to do peer-to-peer calling.
Okay.
So if anybody, another, colleague and or, colleague at another company, if they also use Teams, you'd be able to call them.
Yeah. Teams to Teams.
Yeah. So the same way, like I can make a WhatsApp call to another WhatsApp user or a FaceTime audio call to a FaceTime. Okay. It's like a direct peer-to-peer. But Teams Phone with PSTN refers to like, well, I can make a call to any phone number, regardless of what device or, carrier or what have you.
So you're right, because I know we have to configure this in the systems to be able to interconnect. I just didn't know it was a different option that you had to purchase. Probably is a different price for both.
Yeah. It's like a different category. Thing, basically. It's a different license element.
So I know we have to configure this in the Teams environment so that it can go outside to an SBC connected to the rest of the world. For sure, you need to have that.
So session border controllers effectively play that role of normalizing things on both sides, right? So can you talk a little bit more about the key functions they accomplish in doing so?
Yeah, so in general, SBCs are security devices for SIP traffic. So it protects against attacks and illegal access. And actually, we've been talking about that on other podcasts we did recently, which is fraud protection and checking the numbers and DNO and all these things, right? So we have all that part of security, plus support for TLS and SRTP. TLS is encrypted SIP messages, and then SRTP is encrypted media on this SBC. Then you have access to all the other carriers, which could have different SIP interfaces, adaptations, changes. Then you have routing capabilities. Right, so you need to be able to get a call in and decide where you're going to send that, which carrier supports this subscriber. And the same is when the opposite is when you receive the call, you need to send to Teams the numbers that are assigned to this carrier. There's high availability to support if you have a failure somewhere. There's probably also capacity versus not reliability, but more like how do you want to install those equipments, right? So it could be cloud-based, could be on-prem, could be a VM-based system. So this gives you flexibility in the way you will design your architecture, right? So
got it. So what is seemingly an easy idea, which is connect Microsoft Teams to the phone network, or just make it a SIP trunk. In practice, it's much more difficult to set up voice infrastructure properly, and session border controllers play a key role there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just the number of things you want to do there, which is just routing, fallback, call detail records, everything that the carrier would do for handling calls.
It's an exciting kind of time for us to be having this conversation, and it's something that's been talked about for a long time here, but you obviously have experience a little bit with the configuration, because it's now something that we're capable of doing with our Pro SBC, which is to say, like, we now support Teams direct routing, which is an important kind of step for us.
Yep, absolutely. So we have these new versions. So things like I talked about already, SIP TLS, you need to configure this. You need to have certificates because it's encrypted. So you have to exchange your certificates with your destination.
Hang on, you're referring to how to set up Pro SBC in the context of interfacing with teams.
Exactly.
Got it.
SBC, right?
Got it. Sorry, keep going.
Configure that the TLS. It's all done with a few domains, right? So fully qualified domain names that you need to put there to reach the SIP Microsoft network. Then you have so on the Teams side, on the Microsoft environment side, you need to configure things as well. We talked about that. You need to have this special phone license.
You need to have the phone license. That's the first one. Okay.
And then you need to allow calls to go to the network. You need to point it to the SBC, right? That it's going to be used to send your traffic out.
And that's like the Microsoft admin that does that, right? For that organization.
It needs to be the admin. Yeah, you have to get into sometimes a bit tricky commands, right? So
tricky settings.
You need to know what you're doing, right?
Got it.
For this part. If you already have some PSTN connectivity, then you have nothing to do, right?
Yeah,
it's
already all set up. It's basically just setting the permissions to allow, like the users in your Teams account to make calls outside of it.
Exactly.
Like the default is that like you can make Teams to Teams, but they don't but you can enable outbound, which is all you're doing there. Okay, got it.
That's right. And then on the SBC side, there's also routing selection. I think maybe I talked about that already. So being able to route the calls anywhere you want. Apart from that, it's regular stuff that SBCs do, right? So
perfect. Well, it's exciting, and basically, as of today, all Pro SBC customers can basically get the Teams add-on and be able to support Teams calling. Is that right?
Yep.
Via the direct routing.
Yeah. So you need to get this add-on, and you need to get the version that works with Teams. You install that on your current system. You don't need anything else special. You just have that, and it works. Yeah.
So, Luc, what were your key takeaways from today's discussion?
Well, I think people are using more and more like desktop interfaces to, reach anybody in your company, outside the company. So, and this is growing. It's growing. So you need to be able to access everything, right? So that's the part where you want things to work from the start, right? So.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the success that these video conferencing platforms have had moving into the voice market. I also think it kind of underscores the continued importance of voice in a lot of ways for businesses and business customers. There's a new channel of communication, yet voice still kind of plays a role and is important. And you continue to see that in the number of users that all of these platforms have been able to acquire. So
totally agree. Yep.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode once again. And thanks everybody for joining. If you're interested in learning more about how to use Pro SBC with Microsoft Teams, please visit our dashboard or click the link in the description below.